Have you ever felt like you're stuck in place, even though you've tried to change many times? It can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you know deep down that something needs to change, but despite all your efforts, nothing seems to shift. You start to wonder if maybe change isn't something that's meant for you, or if you're just not trying hard enough. But what if the reason change doesn't happen has nothing to do with how hard you're working, or how much you want it? What if the reason for the stagnation is something deeper, something we may not even realize? Sometimes change doesn't come easily, and there's a reason for that. Often, even when we desire change and recognize that we need it, it still eludes us. We may set goals, make plans, and try to push ourselves toward transformation, but progress seems slow or non-existent. What holds us back in these moments is a subtle, yet powerful factor: our unwillingness to truly open our hearts to new possibilities. The key to lasting and meaningful change doesn't just lie in external actions or strategies. It begins with an internal shift, an openness to the unknown, and the willingness to face new experiences. When we close ourselves off to change, we close off the possibility of transformation. This can happen in many ways, whether it's through fear, doubt, or simply being so attached to our current state that we are unwilling to step into unfamiliar territory. When we resist new experiences, we are essentially resisting the very force that could propel us forward. Change becomes difficult, and at times, even impossible, because we haven't yet opened ourselves to the idea that something different is possible. We often hold on to the comfort of the known, even when we're unhappy, because the unknown feels too risky or intimidating. But the truth is, until we open our hearts to new possibilities, we are bound by our own limitations. Change requires us to break free from old patterns, and this is only possible when we're willing to look at our lives with fresh eyes and a willing heart. Without this openness, we can keep running in circles, trying to change the outside world without ever truly shifting the inside world. We may try different methods, make external changes, or even work harder, but none of it will stick if we're not truly receptive to change from within. This is where the magic happens. When we are willing to open our hearts, when we let go of the fear, the doubt, and the resistance, we create space for real, transformative change. It is in that space of vulnerability and openness that new possibilities can enter our lives. It's not just about hoping for change, it's about being open enough to embrace it when it shows up, even if it's different from what we expected. Change often doesn't happen in the way we imagine it, but if we are receptive and willing to step into the unknown, that's when the true transformation begins. In this video, we'll explore why change truly happens only when we're willing to open our hearts, and how this shift can transform our lives. We'll look at how we can break through the barriers that keep us stuck, and how we can cultivate a mindset and attitude that allows us to embrace change. Change doesn't have to be something to fear or resist. It can be something that empowers and elevates us. The power to change is within you, but it starts with opening your heart to the possibilities that await. If you've been struggling with making changes in your life, or if you feel like no matter what you do, things aren't shifting, it's time to ask yourself, are you truly open to change? Are you allowing yourself to embrace new possibilities, or are you holding on to what's comfortable, even if it no longer serves you? The first step toward lasting change is the willingness to open your heart and mind to what's new, to let go of old patterns, and to trust that change is not something to fear, but something to welcome. As we dive deeper into this topic, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences and how opening your heart to change can shift the course of your life. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more inspirational videos like this one. Let's continue this journey together as you discover and embrace your own path of change. Your transformation is waiting, but it all starts with being willing to open your heart to what's next. Opening the heart is a concept that often sounds simple, but in reality, it's one of the most profound and transformative shifts we can make. It's not just about accepting new experiences or embracing unfamiliar situations. It's about being willing to truly listen to ourselves, to acknowledge our emotions, fears, and desires, and to accept what we find. When we open our hearts, we give ourselves the space to face the truth about who we are, without running from the parts of ourselves or our lives that are uncomfortable or painful. It is an act of vulnerability, of courage, and of self-compassion. Opening the heart involves letting go of the walls we've built around ourselves over time. These walls are often created out of fear, past hurt, or the desire to protect ourselves from rejection, failure, or disappointment. We learn to guard ourselves because we don't want to be hurt again, and in doing so, we close ourselves off from the world around us. But what we don't realize is that by doing this, we also close ourselves off from the very thing we need to grow and evolve: change. When we open our hearts, we not only allow ourselves to feel and experience life more fully, but we also create an environment where growth and change can take root. We become more willing to look at ourselves honestly, without judgment or fear. This is a powerful practice because it allows us to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding, our weaknesses, our mistakes, and our fears, and accept them as part of our journey. When we open our hearts, we stop resisting the truth about ourselves and start embracing it as part of the process of becoming who we are meant to be. The connection between opening the heart and change is undeniable. Change cannot happen unless we are willing to face ourselves and the world as they are. It's easy to think that change is something that happens externally, that we just need to work harder or do things differently. But in reality, true change begins within. Opening the heart is the first step in this internal shift. When we open our hearts, we are able to see things more clearly. We see the opportunities for growth and change that we may have missed before because we were too caught up in fear or resistance. We begin to understand ourselves better, to see our own patterns, behaviours and limitations, and we start to realise that change is not only possible, but necessary for our growth. For example, when we open our hearts, we might become more aware of the areas in our lives where we've been holding back, where we've been playing small or staying comfortable. We might recognise that we've been avoiding certain truths about ourselves or about our relationships, and that by avoiding them, we've been blocking our own potential for change. This awareness doesn't come from a place of self-criticism, but from self-compassion. When we open our hearts, we learn to see ourselves with kindness, and we begin to see that the first step toward change is accepting where we are, no matter how imperfect it might feel. Opening our hearts also means being willing to accept the possibility of failure and the discomfort that comes with growth. Change doesn't always happen in a straight line, and it's often messy. We may stumble, we may struggle, and we may feel like giving up at times. But when we open our hearts, we are giving ourselves the grace to navigate these challenges without giving in to fear or self-doubt. We realize that every setback, every mistake, and every challenge is part of the process. And it is through these experiences that we learn the most about ourselves and the world around us. A powerful example of how opening the heart can lead to change is the story of Sarah, a woman who found herself at a crossroads in her life. For years, Sarah had been stuck in a job she didn't love, feeling unfulfilled and disconnected from her true passions. She had always dreamed of becoming a writer, but the fear of failure and self-doubt held her back. She had convinced herself that she wasn't good enough, that writing wasn't a practical career, and that she couldn't take the risk of pursuing something so uncertain. But one day, Sarah decided to open her heart. She made the conscious choice to stop running from her dreams and to stop hiding behind the walls she had built to protect herself. She acknowledged the fear, the doubt, and the uncertainty, but she also acknowledged the longing in her heart, the desire to express herself through writing. In that moment, she realized that she had been denying herself the very thing that could bring her the fulfillment and joy she had been seeking. Instead of continuing to stay in a job that drained her, Sarah took the leap. She began writing every day, setting aside time to hone her craft and to explore the world of writing. It wasn't easy at first. She faced rejection from publishers, moments of doubt, and the constant fear that she wasn't good enough. But by opening her heart, Sarah allowed herself to be vulnerable. She accepted the failures as part of the process, and she trusted that the act of writing itself was more important than the external results. As she continued to open her heart to her passion, Sarah found herself not only growing as a writer, but also growing as a person. She learned to embrace the uncertainty and the discomfort that came with following her dreams, and over time, she found success. Her writing began to resonate with others, and and she eventually published a book that became a bestseller. But more importantly, Sarah had changed. She had opened her heart to the possibility of following her true calling, and in doing so, she created a life that was aligned with her deepest desires and values. Sarah's story is just one example of how opening the heart can lead to profound change. When we are willing to be honest with ourselves, to face our fears, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with change, we open the door to transformation. By opening our hearts, we not only allow ourselves to change, but also give others permission to do the same. When we show up authentically, without hiding behind fear or self-doubt, we inspire others to do the same. Change becomes contagious, and the more we open our hearts, the more we create a world where others feel safe and encouraged to do the same. Opening the heart is not always easy, but it is always worth it. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to face the unknown. But when we open our hearts, we are stepping into a space where true change can happen. It's in this space that we find ourselves, and it's in this space that we can create a life that reflects who we are at our core. When we open our hearts, we give ourselves the gift of growth, transformation, and a deeper connection to ourselves and to the world around us. And that is the first step toward real change. Psychological and emotional barriers often act as significant roadblocks when we seek change in our lives. These barriers can arise from deep-seated fears, ingrained habits, or the discomfort of stepping into the unknown. While change is an inevitable part of growth, it's often much harder than we anticipate because of the emotional and psychological resistance we face. These obstacles keep us in our comfort zones, preventing us from fully embracing the transformation that we long for. Let's explore these barriers in greater detail, and more importantly, how we can overcome them to create space for meaningful change. One of the most powerful psychological barriers to change is the fear of failure. This fear can paralyze us, making us believe that if we try something new, we will fail, and the consequences of that failure will be too painful to bear. We might think that if we open ourselves up to change, we risk losing what little stability we have. This fear of failure often prevents us from taking that first step toward transformation. We tell ourselves that it's better to stay where we are than to try and risk falling short of our goals. But what we fail to realize is that staying stuck is a far worse fate than risking failure. Failure is not the end, but a part of the learning process that leads us to success. Similarly, the fear of loss is another emotional barrier that holds us back from embracing change. We fear that in the process of transforming, we might lose relationships, security, or parts of ourselves that we have grown attached to over time. The idea of letting go of the familiar, even if it no longer serves us, feels like an unbearable loss. We might resist change because we don't want to let go of what we've known, even if it's unhealthy or limiting. But what we often forget is that change doesn't mean losing everything. It's about evolving and creating new opportunities for growth. Letting go of what's no longer useful is the first step toward making room for something better. Another significant barrier to change is conservatism, or our reluctance to abandon old habits and ways of thinking. We tend to hold on to what we know because it feels safe and predictable. Our routines, beliefs, and behaviors have become so ingrained in our lives that even if they aren't serving our growth, we struggle to change them. The comfort of familiarity, no matter how stifling, can feel less risky than stepping into the unknown. When we resist change because we are too comfortable in our habits, we prevent ourselves from experiencing the growth that is possible. Habits, though they may seem harmless, are often the very things that limit our potential. We hold on to them because they give us a sense of control and stability, but they also keep us stuck in the same patterns. Overcoming these psychological barriers requires a shift in mindset and a willingness to face our fears head-on. The first step in overcoming these barriers is accepting imperfection. None of us are perfect, and the journey of change is not about being flawless. It's about being open to growth, learning from our mistakes, and accepting that failure is a natural part of the process. When we accept that we don't have to be perfect, and that we might fail along the way, we create the space for real change. Perfectionism can be paralyzing. It makes us feel that if we can't do something perfectly, we shouldn't do it at all. But the truth is that imperfection is what makes us human, and it's through our imperfections that we learn, grow, and evolve. Another powerful way to overcome psychological barriers is by stepping out of our comfort zones. We've all heard the saying, growth happens outside of your comfort zone, and it's true. However, stepping outside of our comfort zone is one of the most difficult things to do. The unknown can feel intimidating, and the discomfort that comes with it can be overwhelming. But it's in that discomfort that the magic of change occurs. When we push ourselves to try something new, to take a risk, or to challenge our old ways of thinking, we create opportunities for transformation and growth. The more we step outside of our comfort zones, the more resilient we become, and the more capable we are of embracing change. The act of stepping out of our comfort zone doesn't have to be a grand, life-altering decision. It can start with small, everyday actions. For instance, trying a new activity, speaking up in a situation where we would normally remain silent, or changing our daily routine can all be powerful ways to step outside of our comfort zone. These small acts of bravery, though they may seem insignificant at first, add up over time, creating a ripple effect that leads to larger changes in our lives. The process of overcoming these psychological barriers is not easy, but it is deeply rewarding. Let's consider the story of Emma, a woman who faced significant psychological barriers on her journey to change. For years, Emma had worked in a job that didn't inspire her. She had always dreamed of becoming a photographer, but the fear of failure and the comfort of her steady job kept her from pursuing her passion. She was afraid that if she quit her job to follow her dreams, she would fail and lose everything she had worked so hard for. Despite these fears, Emma decided to take the first step in confronting her psychological barriers. She began by accepting that she didn't have to be perfect, and that failure was simply part of the journey. She started by taking small steps, such as taking photography classes in her spare time and building a portfolio. As she grew more confident in her skills, she began to take on freelance photography projects, and before long, she had built a small business doing what she loved. It wasn't easy, and she faced moments of self-doubt, but by stepping out of her comfort zone and confronting her fears, Emma was able to overcome the psychological barriers that had kept her stuck for so long. Through her journey, Emma learned that the fear of failure and the fear of loss were merely illusions that had held her back. By accepting imperfection and embracing discomfort, she opened herself up to the transformative power of change. Today, Emma is a successful photographer, living a life that aligns with her passion and purpose. Her story is a testament to the power of facing our psychological barriers and stepping into the unknown. Emma's story highlights how we can overcome the fear of change by taking small, consistent steps toward the life we want. When we stop allowing our fears and old habits to control us, we open up new possibilities for growth and transformation. Overcoming psychological barriers isn't a one-time event, but rather a lifelong process of becoming more comfortable with discomfort, accepting that change is often messy, and trusting that the journey will be worth it. The key to overcoming psychological and emotional barriers is not to avoid them, but to confront them with courage, acceptance, and a willingness to grow. When we stop resisting change and instead lean into it, we create the space for transformation to occur. By accepting imperfection, stepping out of our comfort zones, and facing our fears, we free ourselves from the limitations that have held us back for so long. Change becomes not something to fear, but something to embrace as a necessary and beautiful part of our journey. Opening our hearts is not just an abstract idea or a concept meant to encourage us to be more compassionate and understanding. It's a powerful and transformative act that directly influences the changes we experience in our lives. When we open our hearts, we allow ourselves to embrace new possibilities, new perspectives, and new experiences. This shift in mindset can lead to profound changes, not just in the way we view the world, but also in how we approach our personal growth, relationships, and careers. One of the most immediate benefits of opening the heart is the way it allows us to become more flexible in our approach to life. We begin to see the world not as something rigid and fixed, but as something fluid and constantly changing. This flexibility allows us to adapt more easily to new situations, to accept the unexpected, and to adjust our course when necessary. Life is full of twists and turns, and when we close our hearts, we create resistance to the natural flow of life. We become attached to our own ideas of how things should be, and when things don't go as planned, we struggle. But when we open our hearts, we become more adaptable, more willing to explore new avenues, and more capable of making the most of the opportunities that arise. Opening our hearts also allows us to see things more clearly. When we're closed off, we often view the world through a narrow lens, shaped by our fears, past experiences, and limiting beliefs. We may be unable to see the bigger picture or recognize the opportunities around us. But when we open our hearts, we shift our perspective. We begin to see things from a more holistic view, understanding not just what's happening in the moment, but also what it means for our long-term growth. This clarity helps us understand what needs to change in our lives and what our true goals are. We begin to realize that the changes we are seeking are not about transforming our external circumstances, but about shifting our internal mindset. The new opportunities that arise when we open our hearts are often surprising. We may find ourselves attracted to new interests, people, and experiences that we would have previously dismissed or ignored. Opening our hearts creates space for new ideas and possibilities, and this openness often leads to exciting opportunities that we never anticipated. When we're closed off, we limit ourselves to what we already know, and we stay stuck in patterns that no longer serve us. But when we open our hearts, we give ourselves the freedom to explore new paths, meet new people, and embrace experiences that contribute to our growth. In addition to external opportunities, opening our hearts also leads to personal and spiritual growth. Change doesn't just shift our external circumstances, it also transforms who we are at our core. When we stop being afraid and closed off, we begin to see life in a new light. We stop clinging to old ways of thinking and being, and we open ourselves to the growth that comes with change. We learn to trust ourselves, to trust the process of life, and to trust that change is an essential part of our journey. This trust is foundational for our personal and spiritual development because it helps us move beyond our fears and doubts, allowing us to step into our true potential. When we embrace change with an open heart, we also open ourselves to the possibility of becoming the person we were always meant to be, the person who is not limited by fear, past mistakes, or old patterns, the person who is free to evolve, to grow, and to fully embrace the fullness of life. This kind of growth is not always easy, but it is always worth it. By opening our hearts, we release the resistance that holds us back and step into a life of greater fulfillment, joy, and purpose. A powerful example of someone who experienced profound change after opening their heart is Sarah, a woman who had always dreamed of starting her own business, but had been too afraid to take the leap. Sarah had spent years working in a corporate job that didn't excite her, but the security of her paycheck kept her from pursuing her passion. She was afraid of failure, afraid of losing the stability that her job provided, and afraid of stepping into the unknown. For years, Sarah put her dreams on hold, convincing herself that it wasn't the right time, that she didn't have enough experience, or that it would be too risky. But one day, Sarah realized that she had been holding herself back by refusing to open her heart to the possibility of change. She had been so focused on the fears and doubts in her mind that she hadn't allowed herself to consider the possibility of success. She had been living with a closed heart, and in doing so, she had been closing herself off from the very opportunity that could transform her life. Sarah made the decision to take a leap of faith. She opened her heart to the idea that she didn't have to have all the answers, that it was okay to take risks, and that the process of starting her own business was as important as the outcome. She began taking small steps, researching the market, developing a business plan, and slowly transitioning away from her corporate job. At first, the journey was difficult. She faced financial challenges, struggled with self-doubt, and had to learn new skills. But as Sarah opened her heart to the process, she found herself growing in ways she hadn't expected. She learned to trust herself, to take risks, and to embrace the uncertainty of entrepreneurship. As Sarah continued on her journey, she began to experience the fulfillment that had always eluded her in her corporate job. She realized that the work she was doing was aligned with her passion and purpose, and that the process of creating something from the ground up was deeply rewarding. Over time, her business grew, and she was able to leave her corporate job entirely to focus on her passion. Sarah's story is a powerful example of how opening the heart to change can lead to profound personal and professional growth. Her experience shows that when we embrace change with an open heart, we open ourselves to new possibilities and opportunities. Sarah could have stayed stuck in her fear and comfort zone, but by opening her heart, she was able to step into a life that was more fulfilling and aligned with her true passions. Sarah's journey highlights the transformative power of opening the heart. When we open ourselves to change, we not only create opportunities for personal and professional growth, but we also allow ourselves to become more connected with our true purpose. Change, when embraced with an open heart, becomes a tool for our evolution. It's not something to fear, but something to welcome as part of our journey toward becoming our best selves. The benefits of opening the heart and embracing change are vast. By becoming more flexible, adaptable, and open to new experiences, we create the space for personal growth and transformation. Change doesn't just affect our external circumstances, it changes who we are and how we experience the world. When we stop being afraid and closed off, we begin to see life in a new light and open ourselves to exciting opportunities. Whether it's a new career, a new relationship, or a new personal development journey, opening our hearts allows us to step into the fullness of our potential and embrace all that life has to offer. The process of change becomes not just a means to an end, but a journey of growth and fulfillment in itself. Before we close the video today, I want you to know that change doesn't always come easily, and sometimes it only happens when we choose to open our hearts. We may feel stuck, unsure, or resistant to what's new because of fear, past experiences, or the comfort of familiarity. But the truth is, real transformation begins when we let go of these barriers and open ourselves up to new possibilities. By choosing to open up to ourselves, to others, and to new opportunities, we create space for growth and change. The process may not always be easy, but it is through this willingness to be vulnerable, to confront our fears, and to embrace the unknown that we invite true change into our lives. Throughout this journey, we have explored how psychological and emotional barriers often stand in the way of change. Fear of failure, fear of loss, and the comfort of old habits can keep us in a cycle of stagnation. These barriers are powerful because they are rooted in our deepest fears and insecurities, but by facing them head-on, we can break free. The moment we choose to confront these fears instead of running from them, we open the door to growth. We begin to understand that change is not something to fear, but something to welcome. The process of confronting and overcoming these barriers is where the real magic lies, because it is through these challenges that we learn, evolve, and become the person we are meant to be. When we open our hearts, we not only change our surroundings, but also grow and evolve in ways we never thought possible. Our perspective shifts, and we begin to see the world through new eyes. We become more adaptable, more resilient, and more willing to step into opportunities that align with our true selves. Opening our hearts allows us to connect more deeply with others, to embrace new ideas, and to live with greater authenticity. It's through this openness that we discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed, and it's in this discovery that we find the strength to pursue our dreams and live a life full of purpose. As you continue on your journey of openness and change, I encourage you to remember that true change only happens when you open your heart. Don't let fear or old habits hold you back. It's normal to feel uncertain or scared at times, but those feelings don't need to control you. Instead of staying in the comfort zone of familiarity, allow yourself to step into the unknown with courage. Open your heart and watch your life begin to transform in ways you never imagined. The possibilities are endless, and the growth that awaits you is more than worth the discomfort of stepping outside of your comfort zone. If you found this video helpful and inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with more videos that will help you on your journey of self-discovery and transformation. Together, we'll continue exploring how to open our hearts and embrace the changes that will lead to a better, more fulfilling life. Let's walk this path of change together, supporting each other as we take bold steps toward the life we deserve. Remember, change isn't something that happens far in the future. It begins right now, in this very moment, with the decision to open your heart and embrace what's to come. Take that first step today and allow the transformation to unfold. Your journey starts now.